My children, let me tell you a story about a woman named Margaret Sullivan from Brooklyn, New York. I want you to see yourself in her story, because what I did for her, I am doing for you right now, in this very moment. Margaret was 53 years old when her world fell apart. She had been married to Daniel for 28 years. They had built a life together in a small brownstone in Park Slope, raised their daughter Emma in that home, filled it with laughter and Sunday dinners and the kind of ordinary love that makes a life sacred. Daniel was a good man, a faithful man. He worked as a school teacher, came home every evening at 5:30, kissed Margaret on the forehead before dinner. Simple, beautiful, enough. Then one Tuesday morning in March, Daniel didn't wake up. A heart attack in his sleep. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. I was there, my child. I was there when Margaret reached across the bed and found his hand cold. I was there when she called 911 with a voice that didn't sound like her own. I was there when she stood in her kitchen 3 days after the funeral, staring at his coffee mug still sitting by the sink, and whispered into the silence, "Why?" I heard her. Every tear was counted. Every broken prayer was held. But Margaret's story doesn't end with Daniel's death. That was only the beginning of her wilderness season, the valley I would have to walk her through before she could see the mountaintop I had prepared for her. 6 months after Daniel died, Emma disappeared. Emma was 26 at the time, beautiful and bright, and running from something Margaret couldn't name. She had always been restless, always searching for something beyond the boundaries of the life she'd been given. After her father died, that restlessness turned into recklessness. She started staying out all night, coming home with eyes that looked hollow. She stopped going to the job she'd had at the publishing house. She stopped answering Margaret's questions. Then one morning Margaret woke up and Emma was gone. No note, no explanation. Just an empty bedroom and a mother's heart breaking all over again. Margaret searched everywhere. She called Emma's friends, drove to places Emma used to go, filed a missing person report. The police said Emma was an adult. She had the right to leave. But a mother doesn't stop being a mother just because her child turns 18 or 26 or 50. The ache doesn't recognize age. 3 months passed, 6 months, a year. Emma sent one text message. "I'm okay. Don't look for me." That was all. Margaret stopped sleeping through the night. She would sit by the window in Emma's old bedroom, watching the street below, hoping to see her daughter's face. She stopped going to church because she couldn't bear the questions, the pity in people's eyes. She stopped cooking real meals because who was she cooking for? She stopped doing most things that used to make her feel human. I watched her fade, my precious child. I watched her go through the motions of living while her spirit withered. She went to work at the hospital where she'd been a nurse for 30 years, came home to an empty house, ate standing over the sink, fell asleep on the couch with the television on just so she wouldn't have to face the silence. The neighbors started to worry. Her sister called every day, but Margaret let it go to voicemail. Her friends from church tried to visit, but she stopped answering the door. She was drowning in grief, in guilt, in questions that had no answers. "What did I do wrong?" she would ask me in the darkness. "Why did you take my husband? Why did you let my daughter leave? What kind of God are you?" I heard every word, "my beloved," and I never left her side. It was a Tuesday night, 3 years after Daniel died, 2 years after Emma disappeared, when Margaret found herself sitting on her bedroom floor at 2 in the morning, holding one of Daniel's old shirts, weeping so hard she could barely breathe. She had reached the bottom, that place where you either surrender or you stop existing in any meaningful way. That's when she picked up her phone. Not to call anyone, not even with a plan, just looking for something, anything, to fill the void. She opened YouTube, searching for nothing in particular, and that's when my Holy Spirit moved. The algorithm, that combination of mathematics and mystery, brought her to a video. The title said, "God says, your answer has arrived." Margaret almost scrolled past it. She had stopped believing in answers. but something made her pause. Something she would later recognize as my voice, though in that moment it just felt like a whisper in her spirit. "Watch this." She pressed play, and my child, I began to speak to her through those words. Not audibly, but deeper than hearing. I spoke to the broken places inside her that no human voice could reach. I reminded her that she was seen, that she was loved, that her pain had not escaped my notice. I told her about Joseph in the pit, about the prison that was actually preparation, about the suddenly that comes after the season of waiting. Margaret watched that video 3 times that night. Then she watched another, and another. She subscribed to the channel, God Tells You, and for the first time in years, she felt something stir in her chest. Not quite hope yet, not quite faith, but something, a crack in the darkness where light might enter. She started watching every morning before work, every night before bed. The words became like water to a woman dying of thirst. She began to pray again, awkward prayers, honest prayers. I don't know if you're really listening, but I'm here. I'm still here. And I was listening, my precious child. I was always listening. Something began to shift in Margaret. Slowly at first. She started sleeping a little better. The weight on her chest began to lift, degree by degree. She started cooking real meals again. She started answering her sister's calls. She even went back to church one Sunday, slipping into the back pew, letting the familiar hymns wash over her like a balm. 6 months after finding that first video, Margaret did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She laughed. Really laughed. One of the nurses at work told a silly joke, and Margaret felt laughter bubble up from somewhere deep inside her. And for just a moment, she remembered what joy felt like. That's when I began to move more visibly in her life. Margaret had a co-worker named Robert. He was a widower, had lost his wife to cancer 4 years earlier. They had known each other casually for years, but after Margaret started coming back to life, they began having coffee together during breaks. Just talking. Just 2 people who understood what loss felt like, who didn't need to pretend everything was fine. One evening, Robert asked Margaret to dinner. Nothing fancy, just the Italian place down the street from the hospital. Margaret almost said no. It felt like a betrayal of Daniel, like she was giving up on Emma. But something in her spirit, something gentle and patient that she was learning to recognize as my voice, whispered, "It's okay to live again." She said yes. Dinner turned into more dinners. Friendship turned into something deeper. Robert was kind and patient. He didn't try to fix her or rush her. He just walked beside her, and slowly, Margaret began to believe that maybe her story wasn't over. Maybe there were still chapters to be written. They were married 2 years later. A small ceremony in the church where Margaret had grown up. It wasn't the same as what she'd had with Daniel. It wasn't meant to be. But it was good. It was real. It was my gift to a woman who had learned that love doesn't run out just because you've loved before. But my child, I wasn't done writing Margaret's story. The best was yet to come. It was a Saturday afternoon in October, 5 years after Emma had sent that single text message. Margaret was in her kitchen, the kitchen in the new home she shared with Robert in Queens, making apple pie, humming along to the radio, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Mom?" Margaret's hands started shaking so hard she had to sit down. "Emma?" Her daughter's voice was different, older, steadier, but unmistakably hers. "Mom, I'm in Brooklyn, at a coffee shop on 7th Avenue. Can you come, please?" Margaret was in the car 5 minutes later, Robert driving because her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The coffee shop was 20 minutes away, but it felt like hours. She kept praying under her breath, "Please let this be real. Please let her be okay." Emma was sitting in the corner booth when Margaret walked in. She was 31 now, thinner than Margaret remembered, but there was something different in her eyes. Something clear, something healed. They stared at each other for a moment that stretched into eternity. Then Emma stood up, and Margaret saw the little girl behind her. Maybe 4 years old, with Emma's dark curls and eyes that looked exactly like Daniel's. "Mom," Emma said, her voice breaking. "This is Grace, your granddaughter. I have so much to tell you." They talked for 4 hours in that coffee shop. Emma told her mother about the spiral she'd fallen into after Daniel died, about the drugs, about the abusive boyfriend, about hitting rock bottom in Los Angeles and ending up in a shelter. She told her about finding out she was pregnant and deciding that this baby was her reason to fight. She told her about getting clean, getting help, rebuilding her life piece by piece. And then Emma said something that made Margaret weep. "I found this YouTube channel, Mom, about God, about hope. It sounds crazy, but the words in those videos, they saved my life. They made me believe I could come home. They made me believe you might forgive me." The channel was called God Tells You. The same channel that had begun to heal Margaret 3 years earlier was the same channel that had brought Emma back from the edge. I had been working in both of them. My beloved child, weaving their stories together in ways neither of them could see, bringing them both to the point where reconciliation was possible. Margaret reached across the table and took her daughter's hands. "There's nothing to forgive," she whispered. "You're here. You're alive. That's all that matters." Little Grace looked up at her grandmother with those Daniel eyes and said, "Are you my grandma?" Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm your grandma." "That was 3 years ago, my precious child. Let me tell you where Margaret is now. She is 61 years old. She lives in a house filled with laughter again. Emma and Grace live in an apartment 10 minutes away, and they have dinner together every Sunday. Grace calls her Nana and Robert Papa, and she's teaching them both how to play her favorite game. Emma has been sober for 8 years. She works as a counselor now, helping other women who are fighting the same battles she fought. She leads a small group at church for mothers who have lost touch with their children. Margaret still watches the God Tells You channel every morning. She comments sometimes, telling pieces of her story, hoping to encourage others the way she was encouraged. She volunteers at a grief support group at church, sitting with widows and widowers, holding their hands, telling them that life can surprise you, that God's timing is not our timing, that the end of one chapter is not the end of the whole story. Robert and Margaret celebrated their 4th anniversary last month. They took a trip to the beach, walked along the shore holding hands, watched the sunset, and Margaret thought about Daniel and knew he would be happy for her. Love doesn't diminish love. It multiplies it. But here's what I want you to understand, my beloved child. Margaret's story is not special because of its ending. It's special because of what happened in the middle, in the waiting, in the wilderness. It's special because she kept breathing when breathing hurt, because she kept waking up when waking up felt pointless, because she reached out for help when her pride wanted her to suffer alone. And most of all, it's special because she let me into her pain. She didn't understand my timing. She didn't see my plan. But she kept showing up, kept watching those videos, kept whispering those broken prayers. And I met her in every single one of them. Margaret's story is not unique, my child. It is one thread in a tapestry of miracles I am weaving every single day through this channel, through these messages of hope. There is James in Texas, a veteran who came home from war but couldn't find peace. PTSD had stolen his sleep, his joy, his sense of purpose. His marriage was crumbling. His children were afraid of his angry outbursts. He found these videos at 3 in the morning during another sleepless night, and my words began to heal what medicine couldn't touch. Today, James leads a support group for veterans at his church. His wife tells people he's the man she married again. His children climb into his lap without hesitation. The breakthrough came, just as I promised it would. There is Linda in Florida, 67 years old, who lost everything in a hurricane. Her home, her savings, her sense of security. She lived in a FEMA trailer for 18 months, wondering if she would ever feel safe again. She watched these messages on her phone, the only possession she had left, and I spoke hope into her devastation. Within 2 years, she had a new home, better than the one she lost. But more than that, she had a testimony that encouraged dozens of other disaster survivors. She became my voice to people walking through the same storm she had survived. There is Michael in Ohio, a father of 3 who lost his job at 55 and thought he was too old to start over. The rejection letters piled up. The savings dwindled. The fear grew. But he kept watching, kept believing, kept declaring the promises I spoke through these videos. 6 months later, he started a business that now employs 12 people. His income doubled. His faith tripled. He sends messages to the channel regularly, thanking me for not letting him give up. And there is Sarah in Georgia, a single mother whose teenage son was trapped in addiction. She prayed for 7 years, watching him spiral, feeling helpless and heartbroken. She found these videos and learned to surrender her son into my hands instead of trying to control his choices. 3 months after she released him to me, he checked himself into rehab. Today, he's 2 years sober, working, restored. Sarah says it wasn't until she stopped trying to save him herself that I could do what only I could do. These are my children, beloved. These are the testimonies of those who dared to believe when belief felt foolish, who dared to hope when hope felt impossible, who dared to trust when trust had been broken too many times to count. Now I want to tell you something that's going to change your perspective on everything you're going through right now. Are you ready? You are Margaret. Not literally, of course. Your details are different. Your losses have different names. Your pain has different shapes. But the essence is the same. You are in a season that feels like ending when it's actually preparation. You are in a valley that feels like abandonment when it's actually where I do my deepest work. I see you, my child. I see the smile you wear when your heart is breaking. I see the way you encourage others while your own soul feels empty. I see the prayers you pray in the middle of the night when everyone else is asleep. I see the tears you cry in the shower so no one will hear. I see the way you keep going even when you don't know why you're going anymore. And I am telling you the same thing I told Margaret in that moment when she felt most alone. I have not forgotten you. Your name is written on the palms of my hands. Your face is constantly before me. Your breakthrough is being prepared even while you read these words. Do you know why I brought Margaret's story to you today? Because you needed to see that restoration is real. That second chances exist, that I am still in the business of turning mourning into dancing, ashes into beauty, despair into hope. You might be in the season where you've lost someone you love. You might be in the season where your child has walked away. You might be in the season where your dreams have died, your marriage has ended, your health has failed, your finances have collapsed. You might be in the season where you've forgotten what hope feels like, where faith seems like a word other people use, where tomorrow looks exactly like today, and you can't bear the thought of more of the same. But my beloved child, seasons change. Winters end. Seeds that die in the ground come back to life in the spring. And I am the God of resurrection. I specialize in bringing life out of death, joy out of sorrow, purpose out of pain. Let me tell you what I see happening in your life right now. Within the next 72 hours, you are going to receive a sign that I am moving. It might be subtle, a phone call, a conversation, a moment of unexpected peace. Don't dismiss it. That's me, reaching through the veil to remind you that I am actively working on your behalf. Before you go to sleep tonight, I want you to thank me for what I am about to do. Not what I've done, though there is much to be grateful for there too, but what I am about to do. Thank me for the breakthrough that's coming. Thank me for the miracle that's manifesting. Thank me for the restoration that's already in motion. Within the next 7 days, you are going to have a moment of clarity. Something that has been confusing you, something that has kept you up at night, something that has felt impossibly complicated. It's going to become simple. You're going to see it from my perspective, and when you do, peace is going to flood your heart. And within the next 30 days, you are going to see a tangible answer to a prayer you've been praying. It might not look exactly like you pictured it. My answers rarely do, but it will be unmistakably from me, unmistakably good, unmistakably evidence that I am your father and I take care of my children. Now I want to pause here and ask something of you. This channel, God tells you, exists to bring these messages of hope to souls who are drowning in despair. If this message has touched your heart, if you've felt my presence as you've read these words, would you support this work? Use the Super Thanks button below to give what you can. Your support allows these life-changing messages to reach others who are exactly where Margaret was 3 years ago, sitting on a bedroom floor at 2 in the morning, wondering if anyone sees their pain. As you give, you participate in the work of restoration, and that blessing will return to you multiplied. But whether you give or not, I want you to know this. I see you, I love you, and I am not done writing your story. Now let's pray together. Don't just read these words. Pray them from the depths of your heart. Let them become your declaration, your surrender, your yes to everything I want to do in your life. Father, I come to you in this moment with a heart that has been shattered but is ready to be made whole. I come with dreams that have died but are ready to be resurrected. I come with pain that has defined me but is ready to be redeemed. I confess that I have not understood your ways. I have questioned your timing. I have doubted your goodness. Forgive me. I choose today to trust you even when I cannot trace you, to believe you even when circumstances scream otherwise. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for loving me when I felt unlovable. Thank you for Margaret's story, for the reminder that you are the God of the comeback, the God of the breakthrough, the God of the suddenly. I surrender my timeline to yours. I surrender my plans to your purpose. I surrender my understanding to your wisdom. I surrender my will to your way. I declare that I am your beloved child, chosen and cherished, known and treasured. I declare that you are working all things together for my good because I love you and I am called according to your purpose. I declare that my mourning is turning to joy, my weeping is turning to laughter, my winter is turning to spring. I declare that what has been stolen is being restored, what has been broken is being healed, what has been lost is being found. I declare that my latter days will be greater than my former days. I declare that the best is yet to come. I declare that my story is not over. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. My precious child, something has shifted as you've read these words. The atmosphere around you has changed. The heaviness has lifted, even if just a little. That's not your imagination. That's my Holy Spirit moving, reminding you that you are not alone. You have never been alone, and you will never be alone. Walk forward with confidence. Step into tomorrow with courage. Your Margaret moment is coming. That moment when everything changes, when the lost comes home, when hope springs up again, when life surprises you with goodness you stopped believing was possible. I am with you. I am for you. And I am about to do something beautiful in your life. Watch and see.
Every chosen one reaches a season where heaven feels distant. You pray, but the answers feel delayed. You seek direction, but confusion seems louder. You try to walk in alignment, yet obstacles appear out of nowhere. Many begin to ask, why is God not speaking to me the way He used to? Why does it feel like my prayers are hitting a wall? What most don't realize is that there are subtle but powerful barriers, internal and external, blocking clarity, guidance, and divine communication. These barriers often hide in familiar routines and emotional patterns, silently disconnecting you from God's voice. Before we go deeper into these 9 spiritual barriers, I encourage you, if this message reaches you in a moment you needed it, to subscribe so you don't miss the wisdom meant for your growth. And if this resonates with your spirit, type 1111 in the comments as a sign of alignment, openness, and divine blessing flowing into your life. 1. Internal noise. God often speaks in stillness, but many chosen ones are surrounded by internal storms so loud that divine whispers cannot be heard. Overthinking becomes a constant echo chamber, repeating fears, replaying painful memories, analyzing every small detail, and drowning out the gentle instructions God sends. Worry pulls your attention into possible outcomes that never happen, creating imagined battles that exhaust your spirit before the real day even arrives. The mind becomes so saturated with what-ifs, and maybe this and maybe that the voice of God, which moves softly, is pushed into the background. God does not shout over chaos. He has no reason to compete with noise created by fear, anxiety, or doubt. Stillness is his language, and clarity flows only into a quiet heart. But when your internal world is loud, your spiritual receptors weaken. Even when God is speaking, you cannot tell if it is him or your anxiety pretending to sound divine. The enemy knows this. He knows a quiet soul is dangerous because a quiet soul becomes aligned, sharp, and aware of heaven's codes and directions. So he amplifies the noise through mental clutter, emotional flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, and unnecessary worries, hoping to drown out God's messages. Many chosen ones are not disconnected from God. They are simply overwhelmed internally. They pray but cannot feel peace. Not because God is absent, but because their spiritual antenna is buried under layers of mental static. The noise becomes a barrier to discernment. When your mind is racing, revelation becomes distorted. When you cannot slow down, you cannot tune in. God's voice has not stopped. Your inner storm is too loud. Only when the chosen one learns to silence the mind, through prayer, fasting, rest, stillness, or intentional focus, does divine clarity return. Quietness is not weakness. It is the atmosphere where God's voice becomes unmistakably clear. 2. Unhealed emotions. Unhealed emotions act like filters over your spiritual ears, coloring how you perceive God, people, and even your own destiny. When pain from betrayal is still sitting in your spirit, you may interpret God's warnings as fear-based paranoia, or you may assume every closed door is another rejection instead of protection. Rejection can distort your relationship with God to the point where you feel unworthy of blessings He has already prepared for you. Trauma can make you resist what God sends because you have learned, consciously or unconsciously, to associate good things with eventual loss. Emotional wounds can shape your spiritual perception more powerfully than any external influence. Many chosen ones are not lacking divine instruction. They are simply hearing through layers of hurt that bend the message. It's like trying to read a message through cracked glass. The words are there, but the distortion changes what you think you see. When your heart is bruised, you start expecting disappointment. So even when God says go, you may hear danger, and when He says wait, you may hear abandonment. Pain becomes the interpreter, and pain is a terrible translator. It will always twist spiritual truth. Unhealed emotions also create defensive barriers around your intuition, making you hesitant to trust your own discernment. You become hypervigilant, questioning everything. Is this really God, or is it just my imagination? But the deeper issue is that your emotional wounds are louder than your spiritual sensitivity. God's voice is gentle, steady, loving, but trauma echoes in sharp, fearful tones. Until the chosen one confronts and heals the hurt, God's guidance will continue to feel unclear, inconsistent, or confusing. Healing restores spiritual accuracy. When the heart is whole, divine messages become direct again. The problem was never silence. It was distortion. 3. Wrong attachments. It becomes nearly impossible to hear God clearly when you are tied to people who are not part of your destiny. Some relationships drain your spirit, pulling your energy into cycles of conflict, gossip, drama, or emotional obligation. Some friendships distract you from your assignment because they anchor you to environments your spirit has already outgrown. Certain environments suffocate your spiritual senses. numbing your intuition and weakening your discernment. When you remain connected to those who are misaligned with your calling, your spiritual frequency becomes disrupted. God may be sending guidance, but the noise of these attachments overwhelms your sensitivity. Many chosen ones miss divine direction because they stay loyal to connections God has already released them from. Loyalty to the wrong people can delay destiny more than any spiritual attack. When you hold on to individuals who operate from jealousy, selfishness, confusion, or negativity, their energy becomes a fog around your spirit. It becomes harder to know if the caution you feel is God nudging you or the anxiety coming from their influence. Some people are not evil, they are simply not aligned. And misalignment can be just as spiritually destructive as outright harm. When your circle is full of those who do not share your values, your purpose, or your growth, the voice of God becomes faint. God often speaks through peace, but peace cannot survive where the wrong people live. Many chosen ones do not realize that their discernment becomes sharper the moment they disconnect from certain individuals. Once the wrong attachments are removed, the static clears, and suddenly God's guidance becomes crisp, strong, and unmistakable. The silence you thought was heaven withholding was actually heaven waiting for you to detach. God will not compete with voices that drown out his own. Once the chosen one lets go, the clarity flows. 4. Disobedience to previous instructions. God does not release new guidance when old instructions remain unfulfilled. Many chosen ones cry out, "God is silent," but the silence is not punishment. It is a pause. A necessary, intentional pause waiting for obedience. Heaven operates through order, and spiritual assignments build step by step. When you delay obedience, you delay destiny. When you ignore a previous instruction, whether it was to leave a relationship, start a mission, move to a different environment, forgive someone, or fix a habit, you unintentionally block the next phase of direction. God does not waste revelation. He will not give you step 5 when step 3 is still untouched. Many chosen ones confuse God's stillness with abandonment, but it is really alignment. God is waiting for your action before giving you more. It's like a teacher who cannot hand you the next chapter until you complete the current one. Not because the teacher is withholding, but because progression requires foundation. When a chosen one keeps asking God, "What should I do next?" heaven responds, "Do what I already told you." Each instruction is connected. Each step unlocks the next. Sometimes God's silence is a divine reminder. You already know what to do, complete it. But spiritual procrastination, fear, or confusion can make you stagnate. You may be praying for clarity while heaven is waiting for movement. You may be pleading for direction while God is waiting for obedience. Once you finally follow the previous instruction, the fog lifts. The next step becomes obvious, natural, and almost effortless. There is no greater clarity than obedience. When you honor what God already said, divine momentum returns. The silence breaks, the path becomes illuminated once again, not because God finally answered, but because obedience opened the channel that was blocked. 5. Secret habits and hidden cycles. This is not judgment. It is spiritual reality. Repeated habits that weaken your spirit, even if hidden from others, can cloud your ability to hear God clearly. Secret struggles, whether emotional, mental, or behavioral, carry weight, and spiritual weight affects spiritual sensitivity. When guilt grows, prayer becomes harder. When shame increases, confidence in approaching God decreases. These cycles create an internal heaviness that makes divine whispers feel distant. The issue is not that God stopped speaking. It's that your spirit is too weighed down to receive. Hidden cycles often come with emotional baggage, regret, frustration, self-condemnation, and these emotions form barriers around your intuition. When you feel unworthy, you stop expecting to hear God. When you feel stuck, you stop believing clarity will come. The enemy uses these cycles to isolate you, telling you that you cannot seek God while struggling, when in reality, God is the place you must run to. But the shame attached to secret habits convinces you to hide, and hiding distances you from divine instruction. These hidden patterns also drain your energy, leaving you spiritually exhausted even before the day begins. When your internal world is heavy, it becomes difficult to distinguish God's voice from your own feelings of inadequacy. You may confuse conviction with condemnation, or you may mistake God's guidance for your own anxiety. But once you confront these cycles, not with fear, but with honesty and surrender, your spiritual clarity begins to rebuild. God is not looking for perfection. He is looking for willingness. The moment you release the weight of secret struggles, your spiritual hearing sharpens again. The heaviness lifts, the path becomes clearer. The voice you thought had disappeared was always there. Your spirit was simply too burdened to listen. Freedom restores discernment, and once the weight is removed, revelation flows freely. 6. Impatience. Many chosen ones desire answers instantly. Direction now, confirmation now, breakthrough now. Impatience becomes a spiritual pressure that pushes them into decisions God never authorized and timelines heaven never planned. When the heart is restless, the spirit becomes loud in all the wrong ways. You begin to interpret impatience as urgency, anxiety as insight, and pressure as divine instruction. But God often speaks slowly, deliberately, and intentionally. His voice is not rushed, and his timing is never desperate. Impatience is dangerous because it creates spiritual illusions. It makes you believe that if you don't act now, you'll miss your opportunity, when in truth, anything God intends for you cannot be taken from you. Impatience makes you step ahead of divine timing and settle for counterfeit blessings, opportunities that look right, feel right, and sound right, but are completely out of alignment with destiny. When you hurry, you begin accepting signs that are not from God simply because they appear convenient. You ignore red flags. You distort discernment. You force outcomes that were never meant to be forced. And when the pace of your life becomes too loud, the voice of God becomes quiet. Not because he stopped speaking, but because your speed makes subtle guidance impossible to hear. God's voice thrives in patience. Patience opens your spiritual senses, sharpens your intuition, and grounds your decisions in wisdom rather than emotion. Impatience removes you from that spiritual center. The enemy loves impatient chosen ones because they can be misled by urgency. He knows that if he can't block your blessing, he can rush you into the wrong thing before the right thing arrives. Many chosen ones have lost years, opportunities, and peace simply because they could not wait long enough to see God's full picture. But when you learn to slow down, truly slow down, and trust the divine pace, everything shifts. Clarity returns. Discernment deepens. You stop chasing answers and begin receiving them. God speaks most clearly to the heart that is willing to wait. 7. Fear. Fear blocks divine clarity more than almost anything else. Fear shrinks your faith and magnifies your imagination in the worst possible ways. It takes small uncertainties and inflates them into overwhelming threats. Fear makes you hear danger when God is actually saying move forward. It makes you freeze when God is telling you to step out. Fear creates illusions that look real, sound real, and feel real. But they are nothing more than shadows, designed to distract you from your destiny. When fear becomes the loudest voice in your life, it becomes nearly impossible to distinguish God's direction. Fear clouds your discernment to the point where every instruction feels risky, every opportunity feels dangerous, and every new step feels like a trap. You begin to confuse your anxiety with intuition and your caution with divine warning. Fear also disrupts your spiritual sensitivity. God often speaks in confidence, assurance, and peace, But fear speaks in panic, confusion, and worst-case scenarios. When you are afraid, your spirit becomes closed. You interpret everything through a lens of insecurity. What if it fails? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm not good enough? These internal questions drown out the calm, steady guidance God offers. Fear disconnects you from divine purpose because it convinces you that you are safer staying where you are instead of going where God is leading. The enemy uses fear to keep chosen ones small, silent, and stagnant, not because they lack calling, but because they lack courage. Fear does not mean God is silent. It means your inner world is too overwhelmed to recognize His voice. But the moment you confront fear, not by pretending it doesn't exist, but by refusing to obey it, your spiritual clarity begins to return. Faith restores your hearing, peace becomes possible again, and the voice of God, once muted by fear, becomes unmistakable, strong, and reassuring. Fear may challenge you, but it cannot stop you unless you surrender to it. When faith rises, fear loses its power, and divine direction becomes clear once more. 8. The need for control. A chosen one who tries to control every outcome unknowingly builds a spiritual wall that blocks divine flow. Control often comes from fear. Fear that God won't come through. Fear that things won't work out. Fear of losing what you care about, or fear of repeating past pain. So you begin strategizing every detail of your life, planning every possibility, and trying to anticipate every scenario. But control is a heavy burden, and it disrupts your sensitivity to God's direction. God's voice becomes clearer when you surrender, not when you tighten your grip. When you try to orchestrate everything yourself, you close your heart to unexpected blessings and divine surprises. You become so focused on protecting yourself that you leave no room for God to do what only He can do. Control narrows your vision. You can only see what you can manage. But God's plan is always bigger than what your hands can handle. When you cling too tightly to plans, timelines, relationships, expectations, God waits. Not because He is withholding, but because He refuses to compete with your fear disguised as control. Many chosen ones mistake overthinking for responsibility, but in reality, it is often a lack of trust. Divine guidance flows where surrender exists. When you stop forcing outcomes, you begin to feel God leading you with ease. The anxiety fades, the confusion settles, the path unfolds step by step. The need for control makes you deaf to God's whisper because you are too busy directing your own steps. But once you release your grip, once you finally let go of the illusion that you must manage everything alone, your spiritual clarity strengthens. You begin hearing God not through worry, but through peace. You stop reacting from fear and start moving from faith. Control is exhausting, surrender is transformative, and a surrendered chosen one hears God with profound clarity. 9. Spiritual exhaustion. Even the strongest chosen one becomes disconnected when spiritually drained. Spiritual exhaustion dulls your discernment, weakens your intuition, and makes even simple decisions feel overwhelming. When you are tired, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, the voice of God becomes distant, not because He is silent, but because you lack the strength to listen deeply. Fatigue clouds your perception. You begin mistaking spiritual attacks for ordinary stress, and ordinary stress for spiritual warfare. Your ability to sense God's peace fades. Your inner world becomes cluttered with worries and responsibilities you have been carrying for too long. Spiritual exhaustion often comes from constant giving energy, giving support, giving encouragement, while receiving little replenishment in return. It also comes from fighting battles without resting, carrying burdens without relief, and trying to stay strong without pause. When your spirit is worn down, everything feels heavier. Prayer feels harder, meditation feels distant, worship feels mechanical. You lose the emotional capacity to tune into the gentle, subtle voice of God. But exhaustion is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you have been operating beyond your capacity for too long. God never designed the chosen one to live in continuous warfare without rest. Rest is spiritual. Stillness is healing. Renewal is necessary. When you allow yourself to rest, truly rest, your spiritual senses begin to reawaken. Suddenly the fog lifts, the confusion lightens, the heaviness fades. Clarity returns not because God changed, but because you renewed. Rest restores revelation. A refreshed spirit hears God with precision, peace, and depth. Many chosen ones think something is wrong with their faith when they can't hear God, but often nothing is wrong. They are simply tired. When exhaustion lifts, the divine voice you thought disappeared becomes clear once again. If any of these 9 barriers resonated with you, understand this clearly: God has not abandoned you. His voice has not disappeared. His guidance has not stopped. You are simply navigating the same obstacles every chosen one must face before stepping into their next level of spiritual elevation. Quiet your mind. Heal your heart. Release wrong connections. Act on what God already said. Break old cycles. Be patient. Release fear. Surrender control. Restore your spirit. When you do, the voice of God will return louder, clearer, and more undeniable than ever before. Is the Zillion Mind Channel. If this message was exactly what your soul needed, remember to type 1111 for divine alignment. Thank you for watching. Chosen one, there comes a time in your journey when God elevates you not by lifting you onto a throne, but by allowing your presence alone to shake the thrones of the mighty. You may not realize it at first, but there is a divine power working through you, a spiritual authority that does not come from titles, wealth, or recognition. It comes from obedience, humility, and the quiet strength God planted in your soul. When God wants to humble the mighty, He often chooses someone the world least expects, someone overlooked, underestimated, or even rejected. That someone is you. You were not chosen because you were the loudest, the strongest, or the most popular. You were chosen because your heart carries a purity that cannot be bought, and a resilience that cannot be destroyed. The mighty often stand on external power, money, influence, appearance, or status. But you stand on spiritual foundation, and when God is ready to shift the atmosphere, He uses people like you to expose the emptiness of earthly arrogance. These signs will reveal why the mighty become uncomfortable, intimidated, or even humbled by your existence, long before you ever open your mouth. 1. The mighty feel threatened by your silence. Your silence speaks louder than their boasting. You don't need to shout to be heard. Your quiet spirit carries divine weight, a weight that shakes the foundations of those who rely on external noise to feel significant. When you enter a room, you don't enter with fireworks or theatrics. You enter with presence, with a spiritual stillness that cannot be imitated or fabricated. People who are used to dominating spaces with aggression, loudness, or ego suddenly feel an unfamiliar discomfort rising within them. It's not that you are doing anything dramatic or intentional. It's that your inner calm exposes the restlessness inside them. Your silence becomes a mirror they cannot escape. It reflects their insecurity, their fear of being insignificant without the showmanship they depend on. And when God chooses to use you to humble the mighty, He does not need you to make noise. He allows your stillness to carry a message. Your silence becomes a spiritual force field, one that reveals how empty loud authority can be when confronted with genuine inner strength. They feel threatened because they cannot read you, cannot predict you, cannot influence you, and cannot bend your spirit to their expectations. While others raise their voices to prove a point, you carry an authority that requires no volume. Silence, when backed by God's presence, becomes power, and the mighty, who are accustomed to being feared or respected because of their titles or positions, suddenly feel small in front of someone who holds no title yet carries spiritual weight. Your silence humbles them because it reminds them that true power is not noisy. It is steady, grounded, divine, and unshakable. 2. Their confidence shakes when you show up. The mighty may appear bold on the outside, walking with pride, projecting certainty, and maintaining an image of strength. But when God's chosen one walks in, something inside them trembles. Their confidence, which seemed so unbreakable moments earlier, begins to crack beneath the surface. You will see it in small, subtle ways. They begin fumbling over their words, over-explaining themselves, becoming unusually defensive, or suddenly trying too hard to impress people around them. They don't understand why your presence affects them this way, but you do. The anointing you carry is not just spiritual, it is atmospheric. It shifts the energy in the room. It exposes false confidence, artificial dominance, and the insecurities they have hidden behind power, status, titles, or material success. When you show up, the light of God shining through you forces them to confront truths they have avoided, their internal fears, their need for validation, their dependence on position to feel significant. You are not trying to intimidate them. It simply happens because your presence reveals the difference between human-made confidence and God-given assurance. They sense something in you they cannot name: strength without aggression, authority without shouting, influence without trying, power without ego, and that shakes them. They realize, even if they never say it out loud, there is something divine backing you, something they cannot manipulate, something they cannot compete with, something they cannot overshadow. This is why their confidence falters, not because of who you are alone, but because of who is walking with you. 3. They watch you more than they watch themselves. Chosen one. People who consider themselves mighty suddenly become observers in your presence. Individuals who normally command attention, who expect the room to revolve around them, begin shifting their focus toward you without even realizing it. They watch the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you react, the way you carry yourself, and even the way you breathe. They become students in classrooms they didn't plan to attend. And this is not because you are performing for them. It's because the authenticity you live with naturally draws eyes, naturally awakens curiosity, and naturally commands a respect that titles cannot purchase. When God is using you to humble the mighty, He turns your life into a silent sermon. You become a walking lesson, a breathing example, a demonstration of principles that they have never mastered. They are used to authority that comes from external positions, but you carry authority that comes from internal alignment with God. You are a living reminder that true greatness comes from character, integrity, resilience, and divine connection, not from status, not from money, not from social influence. And so they watch you more intently than they watch themselves. They begin comparing their reactions to yours, questioning their own motives, and even adjusting their behavior after seeing how effortlessly you navigate situations that overwhelm others. Your life exposes what they lack: groundedness, peace, truth, direction, and spiritual depth. They study you not because they want to praise you, but because something in you confronts something in them. They don't say it out loud, but internally they recognize that God is using your life as a measuring rod, not to shame them, but to awaken them. 4. They copy you quietly. When God uses you to humble the mighty, something remarkable happens. They begin to imitate you, often without ever admitting it. You may notice subtle shifts around you. Someone starts adopting a habit you naturally maintain, or mirrors the way you approach challenges, organize your life, or carry yourself with calm authority. They attempt to replicate your style, your demeanor, even your decision-making patterns. because your authenticity exposes the superficiality of their authority. The mighty often rely on external trappings, titles, money, influence, or loudness, to maintain their image, but they see in you something they cannot manufacture: real substance, quiet confidence, and an inner power that comes from alignment with God. They want the results you achieve, the respect you command, and the influence you wield, but they are unwilling to walk the same path of discipline, resilience, and spiritual growth that brought you there. Their imitation, though silent, is revealing. They unconsciously acknowledge that your approach works, even when theirs fails. They study you like an unspoken blueprint, hoping to unlock the secret to your success without embracing the integrity and effort that made it possible. But God allows this imitation as a subtle way to humble them. They see excellence and instinctively desire it, yet they remain disconnected from the source that produces it. Your life becomes a mirror that reflects their gaps, insecurities, and dependence on outward power. And through this process they are forced to confront the truth. Real influence cannot be copied, it must be cultivated from the inside out. The mighty may attempt to mirror your actions, but they cannot replicate your spirit, and it is this very realization that humbles them. Every silent act of imitation is a testimony to your authenticity, a signal that God is elevating you in ways they cannot fake or control. 5. They feel small when they realize you can't be bought. Mighty people often assume that loyalty, attention, and influence can be purchased with benefits, gifts, flattery, or opportunities. They are accustomed to people bending, complying, or compromising for personal gain. But when God uses you to humble them, they quickly realize that your principles are untouchable. You operate on a level where your integrity is priceless and cannot be bribed, bargained, or swayed by worldly incentives. Your refusal to compromise on values, even under pressure, challenges their perception of control. They are forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that strength and power are not measured by what can be acquired or manipulated, but by what cannot be bought or corrupted. They see that your influence comes not from external rewards, but from spiritual depth, consistency, and alignment with a higher purpose. And this realization makes them feel small because everything they have relied upon, their status, their leverage, their wealth, cannot penetrate the armor of your integrity. They understand, consciously or subconsciously, that true respect and authority cannot be coerced. It must be earned, cultivated, and sustained from a place of authenticity. God uses your incorruptibility as a divine tool to expose how fragile their influence really is. When they witness your unshakable loyalty to what is right and your inability to be purchased, their pride begins to crumble. Their usual methods of dominance and control fail to operate against someone grounded in righteousness and divine favor. They become aware that no amount of effort, no clever scheme, and no status can undermine the values that guide your life. This awareness is a spiritual humbling, a quiet but profound recognition that God is using you as an instrument to demonstrate the enduring power of incorruptibility. 6. Your wisdom destroys their pride. Wisdom is more than knowledge. It is insight, discernment, and understanding that transcends age, experience, and even formal education. When God uses you to humble the mighty, your words carry an authority that cannot be challenged because they come from a place of divine alignment. Even the most arrogant or self-assured individuals find themselves reconsidering previously unshakable beliefs when confronted with your perspective. Your speech is measured, thoughtful, and purposeful, yet it penetrates deeper than any loud argument or display of intellectual superiority could. They cannot dismiss your wisdom because it is grounded in experience, integrity, and spiritual insight that goes beyond superficial titles or social position. Each time you speak with calm authority, they are forced to face the limitations of their pride. They begin questioning things they once assumed as truths, and they feel a subtle unease as their certainty diminishes. This process is not about you proving yourself or winning an argument. It is about God using your life as a conduit of truth. Your wisdom illuminates what they lack: understanding, humility, and a connection to a higher source of knowledge. Pride, which has often allowed them to dominate and intimidate others, begins to erode because they recognize that real power does not come from showing off or exerting control. It comes from insight, clarity, and alignment with divine principles. Your knowledge humbles them silently as they see that your decisions, your clarity, and your foresight consistently reflect truth. Every interaction becomes a mirror, reflecting the inadequacy of arrogance when faced with genuine wisdom. And in that reflection, they are reminded that titles, wealth, and influence are meaningless without understanding, integrity, and a connection to God. 7. They can't manipulate you. Mighty people are often experts at controlling others. They rely on manipulation, intimidation, guilt, or pressure to bend situations to their favor. They have perfected the art of influencing people through fear, coercion, and strategic flattery, assuming that everyone will respond predictably. But when God is using you to humble them, all of their tactics fail. Every attempt to sway you falls flat, as if an invisible barrier shields your spirit. You are anchored in a foundation that is not of this world, rooted in divine alignment and moral clarity. You see through their strategies long before they are even fully articulated. Their usual methods of control, whether emotional, psychological, or social, are powerless against someone whose strength is derived from God rather than circumstance or ego. This resistance humbles them profoundly because it exposes the illusion of their authority. They realize that their influence is only as strong as the willingness of others to comply, and when they meet someone whose loyalty, decisions, and actions are governed by spiritual discernment, they confront the uncomfortable truth. Their power is limited, fragile, and temporary. God uses your ability to stand firm as a divine lesson, teaching them that true influence is earned through integrity, character, and alignment with higher principles, not through intimidation or manipulation. Every time they try to twist the narrative or exert control over you and fail, their pride diminishes. They are forced to confront the reality that power is not about forcing outcomes. It is about living with a quiet strength that commands respect naturally. Your unwavering stance becomes a testimony that real authority cannot be manufactured. It is cultivated from the inside out, and nothing external can shake it. This is a humbling experience for anyone who has relied on coercion rather than authenticity to assert their dominance. 8. Your favor annoys them. While the mighty expend efforts scrambling for attention, recognition, or opportunity, you find that blessings flow to you effortlessly. Doors open without knocking, support comes without pleading, and opportunities arrive without orchestrating or maneuvering for them. This is the supernatural favor of God at work, and it frustrates those who rely on networks, leverage, and influence to achieve results. The mighty are trained to believe that success is earned through connections, schemes, and exertion, but they see you thriving without any of the struggles or manipulations they expect. Your rise highlights a truth they cannot deny. Divine favor is unearned, unbought, and unstoppable. It works independently of human calculation and reveals a higher law at play, one that cannot be controlled by wealth, status, or intimidation. This supernatural support exposes their reliance on worldly methods and underscores their limitations. They watch in silent frustration as your growth, opportunities, and success appear natural, effortless, and aligned with a higher purpose. Each blessing you receive, each breakthrough, and each moment of recognition reminds them that human control is secondary to divine orchestration. They may try to compete, strategize, or even sabotage, but your favor cannot be hindered. This realization chips away at their pride because it demonstrates the futility of their attempts to control outcomes they cannot influence. God's hand in your life is visible to those who are watching closely, even if they cannot articulate it. The mighty are humbled, not through confrontation, but through the undeniable reality that some forces in life operate beyond manipulation, and you are living proof of that truth. 9. They realize God is with you. This is the ultimate sign, the pinnacle of divine intervention. At some point, even the most self-assured and mighty individuals recognize that something greater than human effort surrounds you. They may not vocalize it, may not even consciously articulate it, but deep inside they feel the presence of God at work through your life. Your resilience, your breakthroughs, your protection, and your spiritual growth all testify to a higher power guiding your steps. They see it in the way challenges are navigated effortlessly, in the way opportunities seem to align perfectly, and in the way your character remains unshakable under pressure. Fighting you becomes a terrifying proposition, because they sense, even if only subconsciously, that opposing you is tantamount to opposing God Himself. This recognition humbles them completely. Titles, money, influence, networks, and strategies, once sources of pride and confidence, suddenly pale in comparison to the divine guidance that propels you forward. They are forced to confront the ultimate truth. Human power is transient, fragile, and often hollow without alignment with the Creator. Your life becomes a living testament to God's sovereignty and providence. When they sense that their schemes, influence, and authority are powerless against the hand of God, their pride crumbles. The mighty may bow not to you personally, but to the undeniable truth of God's work manifesting in your life. This realization transforms the dynamic entirely. It is no longer about human comparison or competition. It is about witnessing the supernatural elevation of someone chosen and guided. In that recognition, they are humbled, made to see that divine power surpasses all worldly might, and that God's chosen ones move under protection, favor, and anointing that cannot be contested, imitated, or defeated. Chosen one, if these signs resonated with your spirit, then understand this: God is preparing you not just to rise, but to reveal. Your life is a living testimony that true power comes from above, not from earthly positions. This is the Zillion Mind Channel. If this message reached you at the exact moment you needed it, make sure to subscribe, and as a prophetic act of alignment, type 1111 in the comments section to receive divine blessings, breakthroughs, and spiritual protection. Your elevation has already begun. Walk in it boldly. Thank you for watching.